Are you missing the Rockies?
I am homesick, sir. I've been home about 12 days so far this year, and I'm aching for it.
What do you do? When you go home first thing, what do you do?
I usually walk around my home. I go sit in one room for a while, and then I go sit in another room over here, and then I go up here and see if the stuff is where I left it. And then about sunset, I go sit out in my yard and watch the sunset and just really slow down and get grounded again. Within the next few days, I'll go fishing, do a little horseback riding, Passy and I, and just kind of settle in for a while.
Sounds a rough life, doesn't it?
Oh.
Sounds a rough life. And you look out that picture window, I imagine, across the Rockies, 14,000 feet.
The most beautiful view you can imagine. Across from me is one 14,000-foot peak called Capitol Peak, and then there's Snowmass Peak and Daly right beside it. And it's about, 13, 14 miles straight from my house across this valley. And in the winter, the sun sets right behind those three peaks. And when I built my home, I remember one day, the day we opened the ground, the contractor came out and said, "John, where do you want to aim this thing?" And I said, "I want this room right here to be looking right there at those three mountains." And so that's how it is. That's where the sun sets in the winter. In the summer, it's a lot further west. It's beautiful.
If you want to know what the inspiration for Rocky Mountain High and the rest of those songs were, that was it. Okay, the last 17 years it is now, Australians have known John Denver not only as one of the great singers and songwriters of our time. He's sold over 100 million records, making him one of the top 5 recording artists in the world, which is quite extraordinary. They also know him as a great communicator with real concerns for our future and for what he calls our beautiful but fragile planet Earth. Today we'll talk to John about some of the issues. First, let's have a quick look at one of his memorable concert performances in Australia, the opening of the Sydney Entertainment Centre back in 1983. Have a look at this.
Colorado, Rocky Mountain High, I've seen it rain and fire in the sky. I know he'd be a poor man if he never saw an eagle fly. Rocky Mountain High, perhaps love is like a window, perhaps an open door. It invites you to come closer, it wants to show you more. And even if you lose yourself and don't know what to do, the memory of love will see you through. Take me home to the place I belong, west in the world, mountain high. Take me home, country road. Take me home, that country road. Take me home, that country road.
Now that was John back then. Here he is right now. Would you please welcome back John Denver? Thank you, John. Thanks for your time again. We appreciate it. Just tell us what you said again. Look at that.
I feel at a loss without my guitar is one thing. I hope I'm getting better at that. But it's a great evening to be part of. I was really proud to be invited to that.
It was wonderful. I was looking back on through my record collection last night, and I plucked out a couple, John, that I hope don't embarrass you. But do you remember this one? This is John's first album, which is Rhymes and Reason. Haven't changed much at all, John.
Got rid of the glasses. That's better.
But the interesting thing in looking at that and Take Me Tomorrow, and Whose Garden Was This John Denver, which I think for the
Nobody has that album.
There you go.
I can't believe it.
I have that back there. But that's the interesting thing. The reason I raise that is that back when it wasn't trendy to be anti-Vietnam, when it wasn't trendy to be pro-American Red Indian, when it wasn't trendy to be pro the environment, you were singing songs back there long before it became trendy.
Well, and perhaps one of the small voices that got to be heard that started changing people's thinking and having people really become aware. 20 years ago, I think, maybe 25 years ago, the word ecology was not in our vocabulary. So enormous changes have taken place in that time, and it's a lot of voices, a lot of pebbles being dropped in the pond that raise people's consciousness to where now everyone really has some consideration about the environment. We're aware that we have an effect on it, that it has an effect on our lives, and that's a great change in the world.
I was thinking of some of the others though, John. I mean, you sang Tom Paxton's Jimmy Newman on one of those albums. Now that was a really tough anti-war song. That's
the best anti-war song I've ever heard.
Now, similarly, at a time, the only reason I raise that is I think that probably Australians first discovered you with Country Roads, which is back in 71, 72, 73. Right. But I just wanted to make the point that you were doing these anti-Vietnam things. You were doing, as I say, the pro-American Red Indian before it became trendy.
Yeah. Well, you know, and these are not the songs that were the hit records.
No.
So quite often I'm asked when people hear Let Us Begin on my last album, they say, you know, where did this come from? And I say, if you go back and listen to every one of my albums, there is something on each one of those albums that deals with what's going on out there in the world from my perspective. And people have not always heard that.
Yes. Similarly, we had a number of letters when you were on the program last time because of, you've talked of humanitarian issues, and people who'd seen a film about Chile, which was done by an Australian filmmaker named David Bradbury, in which you appeared. And they said, why don't you ask John Denver about this? It appears as though I think he got you at cornered you at a garden party in Chile, and said, why don't you ask John Denver about this? Have you ever seen the film?
I have not seen the film.
Have a look at this, and then let's see what your thoughts are.
Just wondering how you find the festival and being here in Chile.
Well, I'm very happy to be in Chile. It's my first time here, and I find the country beautiful, and people are very, very warm and friendly, and I'm looking forward to singing tomorrow.
Some people have said that the festival shouldn't go on. How do you feel about that? Well, they said there's political oppression in Chile and people being tortured while you're singing.
I don't believe that's true. I think that music is never a torture.
Now, people saying, you know, there's John Denver supporting a totalitarian regime in Chile.
Well, you know, first of all, I'm offended by the film being included in it without knowing what I was included in or what I was being asked about. I'm offended by that. Secondarily, I was there for a festival called Viña del Mar, which is a huge music festival, which has been going on for years and years, and is shown all over South America on television. And, you know, music to me truly is a universal language. And music to me is one of the foremost ways that we can begin to combat actions like what you see there on television. I was criticized similarly for going to the Soviet Union when there was no cultural exchange agreement between our two countries, yes, and having a small role to play in actually getting that cultural exchange agreement reestablished, which I thought at the time was the most important thing that could happen between our two countries. So, you know, I don't support the regime in Chile. I do support people everywhere, and the best way that I can do that is with my music. And I was privileged to be invited to that concert, and if invited, I will go again.
It seems to me that if you stayed away from totalitarian regimes, you'd stay away from 2/3 of the world, wouldn't you?
Exactly, and then you stay away from the people, and you shut off their ears and your voice, and I'm not willing to allow that to happen.
Yes, well, it's nice to get your reaction on that, because we did get a number of letters last time, and it just didn't fit any of the rest of your political posture or your humanitarian stand, I must say. I mentioned last time that you're an active member of some 26 organisations that go from basically almost Save the Children, Hunger, right up to the space program. Is there any particular one? Is there one that is a favourite?
Well, there are two, really, and maybe three. The one that I'm most involved in, the Windstar Foundation, is my own foundation and project.
Windstar?
Windstar in Colorado.
Right.
Oh, wow, there it is. There's one of those mountains I was talking about.
So that's the name of your ranch, isn't it?
Yes, well, it's not my ranch. It's 1,000 acres of land that I purchased. I had a dream from about the time I was 12 years old that someday I was going to have friends all over the world, and that I would have a place in the mountains that people could come to from all over the world for rest and for rejuvenation, to be able to meet other people who felt like they did, who thought similarly, and out of those connections to be able to go back into the world and to their work strengthened and empowered, knowing that they were being effective and that changes were taking place and that they were a part of that. And all of us, and there were a couple of years where I had a fellow, Tom Crum, traveling with me on my concerts as my security man, and we talked about this, and he had many of the same feelings, and all of a sudden it got to be very obvious that I was in a position to make this happen, and it was time to either do it or quit talking about it. So I bought this land, and we created Windstar, Tom Crum and I, and it's a little over 12 years old now, and we have done some remarkable things, I think, and are involved in some remarkable things. So
what sort of things, John?
Well, for instance, we have developed with Buckminster Fuller, who was a dear friend of mine, what's called a biodome. And this biodome is an environment. There, you see it right there. Within that 50-foot dome, we grow enough food to feed 25 people, all year round on a sustainable basis, using no energy but the sun. And once established, once it's set up, it's ongoing, continuous. And I think that's going to be one of the real artifacts that will be part of the end of hunger on this planet. We think it will work as effectively. You know, we grow food 360 days year-round in Colorado when most people can only grow 60 days. So if it works as well in the desert as it does there, and we have every reason to believe it's going to work wonderfully for people all over the world.
What's the next stage then, John? I mean, how do you take it from that experimental stage?
Well, that was a prototype that you saw, the second one that we built. We have 2 in Carolina now. We have 1 going up in New Mexico. We have 1 going up in the Soviet Union. There are 8 others under contract in the United States. And if we prove them in all these different environments, I think we can have the support to make a company out of that, to mass produce them, which will bring the price down to, we think, around $10,000 or $15,000. And there are different sizes. People can put them in their backyard, or it can be a community project, or something at the local school. And we hope to get those out and around all over the world.
Have you thought of going into politics?
I've thought about it a lot, and I'm not a great fan of politics.
Why not?
Well, I think it's it's a tough job is maybe one of the reasons. I always find when I go to Washington that I'm pretty moved by the people I see there. I see some really dedicated people who are really working very, very hard to make a difference in the world and to have a positive effect. And but it's such a hard job, and it's such an incredible bureaucracy, and my talents and my inclinations really don't lie in that way. And quite honestly, I think when you get into politics, you have to get into the party over here. And then you're stuck over here in this framework, and people will only see you and listen to you through that filter. And I think I have a much greater opportunity to be effective in the world, to have an impact on the world by being a singer and a world citizen than I would as being a politician in any state or from any country.
You'd have more opportunity in America, though, than Australia, because in Australia you are locked into the party. If you're a member of the Labor Party and a Liberal Party government is in office, you can't be seconded to go across with your expertise, which you can in America, of course, can't you?
To a degree.
You can switch
but party politics raises its ugly head all the time and keeps holding us back, in my opinion.
We had a number of people write to us again when they knew you were coming on, who've been to the concert so far around Australia, and said, look, we get John's message, we agree with that in fact the world has won, but what can we do given those politics? What can we do as an individual? What can I really do as a little bloke or a little woman sitting down here in Australia?
Well, see, I think everybody wants to make a difference. And the truth is that you can't help it. You make a difference not only by what you do, you make a difference by what you don't do. And it's a very powerful thing, even, just to begin thinking that way, to know that you make a difference in the world. And to know then the kind of actions that you take, whether they're the small thing like picking up trash on the street. Now that's a little thing. But honest to God, it kills me to go to a beautiful park like down in Rushcutter's Bay and see all the trash laying around. And if people would just start doing that, you could have a different sense of pride in your community, in your city. Sydney is the most beautiful city on this planet. And to see trash laying around, it breaks my heart. To go in the Rocky Mountains, to be on a trail or a dirt road anywhere and to find beer cans, that's a shame. And I say that we're better than that. Human beings are better than that. So that's a little thing that we could begin living up to right now. You can support... You can support things like Windstar. If the only thing that you can do, and you say I'm actively involved in 26 organizations, most of them I just give money to. When I can, it's maybe a small check, $100 a year. Sometimes when they ask my advice or something, or to support a particular thing, I do that. I look at it very seriously, and I take responsibility for what my actions are going to be, and I do what I can do. But, a lot of, if you send $1 to an organization, the Hunger Project, I know of nothing in the world working more effectively toward the end of hunger than the Hunger Project.
But the absurdity of that, John, is that with your domes to try and produce more food, we have enough food in the world today.
Well, you have enough food, but we don't have the end to hunger. And what the Hunger Project is about is creating, the strategy, the structure, and the management in a global way to bring about the end of hunger by the year 2000. Now, nobody else is doing that. And it doesn't matter, for years and years and years, wonderful organizations like Africare, like Save the Children, like UNICEF, you can name hundreds of them, have been working very effectively and wonderfully helping people, feeding people, trying to solve the problems of poverty in this world. And yet hunger persists. So what we asked ourselves back when we founded this thing, Werner Erhard and I, is what's missing? And I say to you that what's missing is the global commitment that can show itself in a strategy, in a structure, and with a management process to bring about the end of hunger. And that is our commitment. That's my commitment. And I guarantee it's going to happen. But we can't do it without you.
But it would seem to me ordinary people would have to say, look, we agree with what you're saying. We don't want another African or Asian baby to die any more than we want anyone to die. But it's the politicians. We've got to change the politicians. We can't do much about it because it's those politicians who won't send the wheat across to Africa.
So not only do you have the opportunity to raise your voice by your vote, by your letter to your elected representative, but you should know that there is a specific body, the Hunger Project, and lots of others who are raising their larger and larger voice in favor of this all the time. One of the things the Hunger Project is doing is supporting and promoting and acknowledging leadership in Africa. We have what's called the Africa Prize, a $100,000 prize given every year to really acknowledge that there is leadership. And in doing that, you know, it's a great empowerment. Last year, Joan Holmes took the two people who won this prize. They had a meeting with President Reagan, and he made a little commitment there that the United States was going to do a little bit more about hunger in the world. When I had the opportunity to meet Secretary General Gorbachev last December, when he was in the United States, I talked to him about hunger. And shortly after that, Joan Holmes, our executive director, met with Andrei Gromyko, the son of the president, and this past January, the Soviet Union, for the first time in history, made a commitment to give 200,000 metric tons of grain to the starving people of northern Africa. They've never done that before, never participated before, and now they are. That's a real change, and it comes from us, and it comes from what we're doing, and it comes from your support, and that's a strong political voice. So be involved in that, participate.
We're almost out of time, but can I ask our friends who drove up from Melbourne, who saw the concert, would you like to ask John a question?
Well, John, with
Stephen, is it Stephen?
Stephen, that's right.
Okay.
With your Windstar project, you've tried to create such a unique environment, and here in our country we have such a unique environment as well, being the place we are on the earth. How do you see our role in the world game? How can we participate? Are we to take a stand somewhere?
Absolutely, you can take a stand. And one of the things that you can do is to really acknowledge for yourselves that you're no longer so far away from it all. You know, one of the things we say at Windstar is that that which affects any one of us on the planet affects everyone. So Australia is part of the world. And as the young country that you are, the same things are going on here that have gone on in the past all over the world and are going on some places now. And there's an opportunity to really play a leadership role by learning from some of the lessons of the past where we in the United States, for instance, didn't do too well with the American Indian. You have a better opportunity to deal with the Aborigine here. You have an opportunity to deal not only with the great land that you have here, the beautiful landscape like Kakadu, but also what you do in regard to the resources. I read an article in the paper about all the money that you're supposedly losing by not mining uranium. Now, Australia has taken a very strong stand in the past about, you know, nuclear weapons being in their country, nuclear-powered ships. There's two ways you use uranium. Nuclear power, which doesn't work, and which we don't know where to put the wastes, and people do not know that we have created 4 times as much energy out of conservation in the last 20 years than we have by nuclear power. All right? That's a fact. So that doesn't work. And now they're saying, well, we'll use Australia to put away our nuclear wastes. Not a good idea, folks. You ought to take a hard look at that. The other way you use uranium is to make nuclear weapons in the world. I think we're trying to get rid of those. So there's a very real opportunity right there for you to raise your voice and say what you feel about yourself as a human being, as a citizen of the world, and as an Australian, and in a way that's going to have a profound impact in a real leadership way on the rest of the world.
Thank you, John. Thank you for that. In fact, just give those dates. John Denvers will be singing at the Sydney Entertainment Centre tonight, and tomorrow night and Thursday night, and in Brisbane on the 17th of June, then he goes back to Colorado. We've had some people also write who've seen the concert so far and can't get the record, that John's album. It was rushed out for the tour, and we are being told today that it is available now and will be available in the week ahead. So if you missed it at the concert, it certainly is available there. That's the reason. Don't whinge. Thank you. Would you please thank John Denver for us?
Thank you very much. Very nice. Good to see you.